All right. Well, happy Thursday to everyone out there. I hope everyone is feeling well, doing well, and showing off their beautiful smiles. Maleshia, like it's giving me Colgate right now. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Blair. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. I'm so happy to have you and so happy to see you and every beautiful body out there. If you're not familiar, my name is Blair G. Hervey. I am the founder and CEO of The Corporate Strategist. Usually I'm joined by my colorful co-host, my bestie and soul friend of 20 plus years, D'Angelo Crane. But I think he is caught up in a meeting today. So we will move forward without him and hope to see him obviously tomorrow. But a big welcome to everyone and to our guests, of course. We're so excited to have you. So welcome everyone to the Black DEIBA Collective. We call it podcast, LinkedIn Live series, Facebook series, wherever you are watching us from. We always like to get things kicked off with what D'Angelo refers to as the art of the check-in. He finds it really important to carve out time to authentically connect with our peers, with our leaders, for leaders to connect with their teammates and associates. And so we do the same thing here. So I'll just ask you very, very authentically and easily, how are you feeling today?
Purpose driven.
Ooh, purpose driven. Tell me more. Where does that stem from?
It stems from just being in the moment, being led by God, just doing what I'm supposed to do in the moment. So just purpose driven, surrendering.
Ooh, I love that. Well, you are definitely radiating that and some beautiful energy as well. Well, for me, I would say I'm definitely feeling great. I just made some chicken fried rice. I actually had some lunch that was warm. Shout out to Trader Joe's for making that very, very easy for me. I go get a haircut today on the side, so I'm gonna feel like a new person. And last night I applied for 3 grants, and I'm preparing for like 4 different pitch competitions. So I am energized, to say the least. Round of applause. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, speaking of our topic today, which is all about listening and active listening, what did you listen to before this call? Any music or any?
Oh, that is excellent. Yes, I was listening to music when I was working out, and it's very eclectic. Let's just say I love a upbeat rap song, keep me on that tempo.
Yep.
And prior to that, I listened to, if anybody know Pastor Kim and her morning check-in spirituals. So I always listen to her every morning to get my day focused and started.
We love a good balance of the righteous and the ratchet. Okay. That's very important. We need that balance.
We're complex, but it's all great.
We are layered creatures for sure, and it's all important. It all makes us who we are. I was actually listening to. I love Glorilla right now. I love Glorilla. I do, her little raspy little self, and probably Kendrick Lamar. So that was my little blend right before I got started. Well, so y'all may know me or may know a little bit about me, but I definitely want to welcome our guest speaker, Maleshia, who is here to talk about something that is very, very important. It's the skill that not only every leader needs to have to be effective, but definitely when we're talking about peer-to-peer communication, when we're talking about relationships. Maleshia is a subject matter expert in cultural competency, health equity, and social justice. She identifies as a BIPOC woman who has both macro and micro level of healthcare, DEI, and social justice experiences, with identifying opportunities for change and addressing barriers against advancement for minorities in the workplace, in healthcare, and in the community. Woo, that's a lot. So give it up for Maleshia for being here. Nice to have you. Nice to see you again.
Thank you so much, Blair. And yes, that's correct. It kind of reflects my age, but that's okay. I've been around. I've done a few things. So just a little bit about myself. I feel like everybody got a story. And yes. I think everybody's story is important, and we can take a lesson from that. So to summarize my story, I was born in a marriage of a mom and dad, but my dad left the home very early. So I was raised by a single mom, low income.
Shout out to moms.
Yes, but I had the privilege to be bused into a majority white community school system. Okay. And that was my exposure to other races, to be honest, because I grew up kind of in the projects. And so from there, I was able to go into a high school, Winter Hills High School, if anybody from Ohio, college-bound school that really prepared me and advanced me for school. And so when I went to school, once again, I wanted to be that doctor because healthcare was kind of my background. Like, yeah, why not be the doctor? There's nothing else in healthcare. But I realized early, chemistry ain't my thing. I tried really, really hard, but it wasn't my thing. So I
Same.
kind of was like, after 2 years of chemistry, I was like, I quit.
Yeah.
So I decided really what I care most about is people's mind, what they're thinking. And so that led me to the field of social work. And I think a lot of times when we talk about social work, we think about that social worker who removes kids from home, but social work is very broad. We have administrators in Washington, D.C., making policies right now. We have healthcare social workers that helping people with chronic conditions and terminal conditions. We have mental health, behavioral health social workers that work with the mind and counseling. So social work is very, very broad. And I had a dean convince me to go that route. So yes, I went that route and I've been in healthcare social work for over 20 years. But one of my, you have that pivotal moments when I was in my master's program. This was in 2001. And if you're familiar with Ohio, there was a shooting of an unarmed black teen, Timothy Thomas. And just like the George Floyd riots, that happened in Ohio at that time. And the city was just in disarray. And so I remember in the class with the professor, he basically had a roundtable of how we felt and have we made progress. And me and my big mouth and being honest, I said, no, we have not made any progress in the city.
That's right.
He said, can I talk to you after class? I said, oh, what did I do now with my mouth? But to make a long story short, he told me that the Judge Susan Delight in the city was looking for mediators to work with the police and the city to come up with a document of policing. And so I was able to do that under Judge Susan Delight. And basically that became the Cincinnati Police Collaborative Agreement. And so that has been my involvement in the city doing social justice. Now, unfortunately, 20 years later, we're still dealing with some of the same issues. But my story is on that, when I said micro level, is that one-on-one. I'm an independent licensed therapist where I can do and license and have my own private practice to do therapy. But I also deal with things on a macro level. I was a health equity leader, as well as I recently I'm currently graduating with my MBA in healthcare administration.
Yes, I love this.
So when I say the workplace, I've been on EEO committees. I've done employee resource groups. I just try to be a vessel and make sure that we're seeing, I'm advocating and making sure there's a seat at the table.
Absolutely. I'm glad that this is being recorded because that is a perfect little commercial for yourself. You should, you should take that and make sure that you are sending that to all of the powers that be. They need to hear from you. I love what you said as far as your journey going into social justice and working with police, especially during a time where emotions were very heightened. You're talking about policies, you're talking about legislation, you're talking about communities that are really being affected by police and poor policing, actually. So when you brought this particular title, this subject to the table of the virtual table of TBC, listening with a heart posture of empathy, this totally makes sense now. So talk to me about how much empathy you actually have to have maybe on the other side of the fence when things like that were really happening, when those riots were happening.
That is an excellent question. And you're correct. That's what I learned. That's what my takeaway. So in that process, part of my role as a mediator, and once again, I volunteered my skills. And then this wasn't a paid position. It was just the judge selecting people with skills to work in the community to do this. And so when I say practice empathy, this was roundtable discussions with almost every population sector in the city, police force, religious sector, youth, white community, other minorities, workers in the community. I mean, we went from, it was basically a running show of going from group to group to collect information about what's important to them. Why do they want change? What does change look like? And so when you say empathy, yes, I had to take myself out of my feelings as a Black woman and how I was feeling about the situation and hear their perspective of what they're feeling. And empathy is uncomfortable. Let's be honest. Nobody want to feel poor. If you're not poor, you don't want to. I mean,
Right.
we're real. That's why it's so hard. Nobody wants to feel with empathy, but to do this work, you have to take yourself out of your comfort zone, and
Truly.
that's what I had to do. I had
Truly.
to listen with a heart of empathy.
Oh my goodness gracious. And we talk about, that everyone has a story, and we want to create space for people, particularly underrepresented folks, to find their voice, to use their voice, and to be a presence wherever they are. So again, I'm just thinking about giving that same energy and that same safety, that same space to folks who have historically harmed my community. So, I mean, kudos to you, especially for doing it at, you know, no cost. Because listen, the re-traumatization, the triggering, the microaggressions, all of the things that you can experience in that space, I'm always like, you're going to pay me. If I'm going to deal with this, you're going to pay me. So thank you, because sometimes we do have to give our best stuff away for free. Russell Simmons said it best in his book, Do You? And that's not only for recognition, but that's also so that, people like me can stand on your shoulders. So I definitely appreciate the work that you did. Um, I do have I do have a question about listening actively, since that's what we're talking about. I did some quick Googles, and I really read about listening and how active listening requires presence, patience, and practice. And I know that one of your mottos is that you are driven to lead by example and coach others along the way. How do you exhibit those qualities as you are active listening and sharing that with others?
Thank you for that question. One, showing up, being present. I like I said, I'm an onion. I'm the one who likes football and yelling, but then at the wine tasting and the ballet, like really, you have to put yourself in all these situations to one connect and be present because we have a tendency to be around a group of people that look like us, like the same music, dress like us, things like that. So one, being present. Second is connecting, hearing their story. I love people's stories. I'm the one at McDonald's, like, while we're waiting for your food to get your order to come up. Oh, and your grandkids, and you took them to the
Yes.
okay, because I learned so much from other people's story. And when I hear that story, and active listening is, I always ask myself, especially as a therapist, why is this important to them? Why are they telling me this? That's the key, because I'm not going to always remember the details of your story. My takeaway is, why do you feel that it's important to share this with me? And
Mm.
that why is the key to connecting. And so just being there, nonverbals, eye contact, a smile goes a long, a long,
Does
long way. People don't smile anymore. It's like, what? Why are you smiling? I'm happy. My daughter says that to me all the time. She said, "Why are you laughing?" I'm laughing. I
yeah.
didn't know I didn't have a permission to laugh. But that's that inner joy. It's just smiling, laughing, and I think part of active listening is basically reconfirming you heard them. People want to be heard. So
Yeah.
when they tell you something and they tell their story at the end, you say, "Well, thank you. It sounds like you were very concerned about whatever, and this part hurt you." Yes,
Mm.
yes. You'll get their nonverbals, head shaking. Yes, you got it. Yeah, I got it.
That okay, I like that. I mean, you brought up your daughter. I think about my son, and anytime I ask a question about, have you done this, or whether it's accountability, follow up, or whatever the case may be, sometimes the response we get is, "Huh," and you know what we always say as Black mothers: if you can, you can hear. So, so what is the difference really between hearing and listening? I think you did a good job of starting that, but tell us a little bit more about the difference between hearing or ensuring someone has felt heard, but truly active listening.
I think asking yourself those questions when they're talking to you,
Okay.
understanding their story, giving them nonverbal cues that they're in a safe space to share. And once they have told you that story, even maybe tapping into feeling worse. How does that feel? That had to hurt, or that had to be a happy moment with you. Use those feelings words. And then at the end, summarizing what they said and what was your takeaway from what. So that's the key of active listening. I think listening is just, okay, I'm sitting in the room, someone's giving a lecture, I heard you. But no, active listening is paraphrasing back to that person what you heard and,
Mm.
and what that meant.
Yeah, and cultivating that culture of curiosity, if you will. I love
Yes.
how you're saying to ask more questions. And then, those are the discovery questions. This is the sales girl in me. But you start with
Yep.
discovery questions, which are, more higher level. And then you start going into those probing questions. But I love that summary. Again, in sales, we call it assuming the sale. And we move forward with what we thought we heard. But instead, you're choosing to summarize to ensure that what was said is
Yes.
truly what was heard or what was intended to be heard. So I think that that's really important.
And I
That's
think
really
we all experience that in our personal life. We have a loved one or
mhm.
husband, spouse, or whatever, and you argue, whatever, and they be like, so you're mad because I did it. And when you feel like they heard you, you're like, yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, that's what I. So you know when you connect and you know when people feel like they've been hurt.
Yes, 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 yes. And some other quick Googles out there, when thinking about those steps to active listening, you focus on the intent and purpose of the conversation, which I think you alluded to as well with those why
Yeah.
questions. You're paying attention to body language, which you mentioned as well. Give encouraging verbal cues, which you also mentioned, and then clarify and paraphrase. So sounds like you and Google are in lockstep.
You got it. You
Here,
just practice those active listening skills. Where there you go.
yes, see? That just means that you're a great teacher. We talked about some other things right before the call. See, I'm just pushing you, hopefully, I always say from his mouth to my heart to my hands, but now it's to you. I'm the conduit.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe he's
Yes,
pushing
ma'am.
you to teach more.
Yes, ma'am.
This is good. This is good. This is really great information. Okay, so active listening. We're talking about cultivating this culture of curiosity, asking more questions, summarizing, giving those verbal cues. What happens when it's time to sit in that space of discomfort? What happens when we're talking about the young man that you mentioned? Was it Timothy Thomas? Is that you
Mhm.
mentioned? Timothy Thomas of the world, the George Floyds of the world. What if we're talking about, I'm late on a deadline and I've done this several times. What happens when we start talking about the things that are very uncomfortable and the person across from you, you don't agree with what they're saying? So then how do I truly exercise and demonstrate active listening with the intention to still be effective as a leader in that moment? I need to redirect you. I need to, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do I leverage that skill set and still get you there?
I think one, we have to be self-aware of our own feelings. I know when I am really in my feelings, it's a body reaction. My chest is beating like this. I'm sweating, and then if if I'm a black girl, I'm like, okay, wait a minute, if you're really in your feelings, every culture has their things that when they're really in their feelings, you see a physical thing. And I guess my point is self-awareness. Hey, that's where active listening starts, because you can't listen to them because you're in your feelings. Let me check these things right now. I'll get back to that. You're allowed to have those feelings. I think that we think active listening is putting down our feelings. No, we're allowed to have them feelings, but I have to put them on pause for a second to hear you. And once I clearly hear you, then I know how to connect with you, because I can use active listening. I can say, what I heard you say is blah, 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 but I disagree. It's
Yeah.
okay. Active listen don't mean I have to agree with you. You just trying to make sure that person is heard and you heard what their takeaways are. And when you hear what their takeaways are and they're what they're passionate about, then you can add to the conversation. But I think we're so caught up in our own feelings about the situation, what we're thinking and how we want to address it, that we don't give people an opportunity to express. So yes, I think it's okay to disagree. Active listening is just making sure you heard them. You heard them. And a lot of people don't hear.
Yeah. And I love what you said also about body language, but the word that you used originally was posture.
Yes.
Posture is really important as well. So it's in that presence and that energy that says, this conversation isn't over until you have fully expressed yourself. I have sat across from so many people where they just trying to rush me through it. Girl, I'm not done. Like, let me finish what I'm saying. And there have been people, and I can think of a couple of folks who have definitely grown, and I'm sure I've grown in this area too, where we're always listening to respond. And so, or we're listening to what you're saying, but as soon as this person finishes, I don't know, do you ever listen to voice notes on your cell phone? Yes. And sometimes I'm the person that leaves long voice notes. Sometimes in the voice note, I'm listening, but I'm taking notes. Have you ever done that? Or is that just me? That may just be me.
No, you're exactly right. And we know that majority communication is nonverbal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, this is true.
I'm like, I have my girlfriends, I got longtime girlfriends since junior high. And they say, Maleshia, fix your face. I'm like, I like it. They like, no, your face say something else. So reality is that we have to be cautious of those things when we're using active listening, because nonverbals is really how we communicate.
Yes, absolutely. Are there any other nonverbals that we can be very mindful of in the workplace? Before you answer, something that comes to mind is a gentleman who, it wasn't me, but it was another woman. And this woman, I hate when people call it this, but had a resting face. And her resting face was, it was, I don't know. I mean, mine usually is like this is why I have this divot here, but I'm just listening. But I guess what it said was something different than what he took it as. And he took it upon himself to be the person, assign himself to her life and say, yes, and to text her and say, hey, fix your face. Now, I can do that to my girls, but we talk about it. So in the workplace, when someone thinks that they're trying to hold you accountable for those nonverbal cues, what's a better way that they can handle that?
Well, that's a great question. I think, like you said, he took it upon himself to say that. And I think mainly, I'm assuming they had a personal relationship to have that platform to do that, because that's pretty risky. You don't, like you said, that could be someone's face and they don't mean any harm. So I'm assuming they had a rapport that they can do that. But if you're trying to communicate about somebody nonverbals, maybe asking them, hey, is there anything else you want to add to the conversation that I haven't addressed? Or do you have a question, before we continue? I think there's different ways that we can go about it instead of attacking them or making assumptions. I think a lot of times we just make assumptions. We don't dig a little deeper. And they'll say, oh no, my mind is just worried about my daughter. She's sick. You're like, I done came in with a whole story. You mad at me? You didn't like what I said. My presentation was wrong. I didn't turn it in the way you. But reality is that their mind was preoccupied. So just asking like you would ask your friend, "Hey, you okay? You okay today?"
Absolutely.
And not a derogatory way, because we have a way of saying, one of my phrases. We always talk about phrases that kind of, they'll say, help me to understand that. Help me to understand what you're saying. I'm like, no, I don't like how that was said. That was another way to say that. So reality is that we all have our ways that rubs us the wrong way when people try to dig a little deeper. But I think there's a way to ask with empathy and making sure you're just trying to understand.
Truly. And, even prefacing your statement or not your line of questioning or your interrogation, but your next steps with, hey, I'm just seeking to understand, or I just want to have a clear understanding, or I'm just trying to connect with you a little bit further. So if there's a better way that I can do this, by all means, let me know. But I just had a couple questions for you. I think prefacing that, it lowers the guard as well versus peppering people with questions. And I love what you said about you don't have to address every little thing. I remember when I first started public speaking, and there would be people in the audience who it looked like they didn't get it, or they were surprised by my presence, and I would always have to be the one that would be like, girl, you okay? Are you getting what I'm saying? Not necessary. And that's calling someone out. It's not calling someone in. So I can definitely admit that I've definitely been guilty of that in the past. So there's a better way to do that. So, what were you about to say?
I'm good.
Oh, okay.
Actively listening to you.
Well, excellent. Well, what is one thing that our listeners, our viewers can take into their next meeting as it pertains to active listening, specifically our leaders out there?
I think listening. One of my key takeaways as a leader is that leaders they keep their mouth closed. They listen. A leader listen. If you're talking a lot, there's something wrong. There's truly something wrong. Don't get me wrong. Presentations, you're sharing information for the business to grow. That's one thing. But actually talking every minute, the whole minute, with no space for people to think, that's, as a leader, something's wrong. And to get people to talk and be comfortable with talking, you have to appreciate and celebrate moments of silence. People are thinking. Give them time to process it. Give it time for the information to sink in. And then I always say, and I'm bad, that's the therapist in me. Did that make sense? Did you understand fully what I was saying? And you'll give nonverbals, yes, yes, I got it. Okay. Well, is there any questions you have about the information I just shared with you? How do you feel about that? There's okay to have feelings, words. How did that make you feel? Are you uncomfortable moving forward with the instructions that I gave you? I just think there's a better way to connect with their employees.
I really like that. Oh, I apologize.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you're fine.
Sorry. See, I have to work on my active listening.
No, there's a little delay over here. So sorry. I apologize.
I was about to say, it's me. Because I know that that's one thing that I've had to work on is over talking as well. So even as leaders, again, if you're one of those individuals who has to do all the talking, and then on top of that, you're over talking, or what can be a pet peeve for a lot of people is stepping on the tail of something. You don't know what I'm gonna say. That's not how I was about to wrap up. So I have to be mindful of that. But I think that's also a great tip for folks out there. And you also mentioned that person that always needs to speak. Liz Wiseman has this book out there called Multipliers, which I do love that book. But we got to get some other authors out there who has some other content to share that's similar, even better. But she talks about being the person that needs to be the genius in the room versus the genius maker. And everything that you said today reminds me of that. How do you ask more questions, identify strengths and weaknesses, and how do we uplift our peers as well as our teammates? It's very helpful. Is there anything else that you care to share with the audience before I ask you a few rapid fire fun questions?
Yes, and always be comfortable with this work and what we do to build connection, to change your mind. It's okay to change our minds. It's okay to change our approaches. It's okay to change how we thought about something. It's okay. Grant yourself permission to change.
Ooh, that's a good one. I think that's a tough one too, especially when, well, it depends. If you are X years old, like I'm almost 40, I'm okay to say that. But I've been this person for so long, right?
It's okay.
Right? It's okay to release that individual and say, like you said earlier, who am I today? Yeah. I like that. Well, thank you, ma'am. Those are some great tips. Okay, some fun questions for you. Are you into Marvel or DC comic books or anything like that?
Oh my God, don't kill me now. My husband, my son are deeply into it, but no, they know.
That's me and my son's thing too. We love to watch Marvel flicks. Okay.
Yes. So sorry. Okay. I'll watch a couple, but that's not my passion.
Well, then tell us, what is your passion?
Oh my gosh. I love music. I love concerts. I travel for live concerts. I love live music. I've seen some artists way too many times that I want to admit.
Yes. Oh, I like that. What genre?
All over the place, from Taylor Swift to Biggie. There you go. That's telling my age.
Wait, you've seen Biggie?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Wait a minute. Now that's a whole nother conversation. You've seen Biggie live? Like, my heart just jumped. Anyway. Okay. Well, then last question. So when it comes to, well, you already said music, live music. Well, then just tell us, what was the last concert you went to? Do you remember?
Oh, please don't judge me.
No judgment.
Chris Brown and Lil Baby. Now I was supposed to go. My son and my husband went to see Lil Wayne last weekend. I didn't get to go to that one, but yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I have to tell you, I'm very jealous because I love Lil Wayne. And I was just looking at the Carter tour the other day. So I hope they enjoyed it. Well, I'll tell you what, I definitely enjoyed you. You are a ray of light, and we definitely appreciate everything that you had to say about active listening and making sure that we're doing more than just here. So thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you for allowing me to join you on your platform, Blair. Keep
Nope.
up the great work.
Thank you. For everyone else out there, please join us every weekday at 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another dose of DNB with the Black Diva Collective. All right, y'all have a great day. Bye now.